Hello. Yes, that's Tall Boy. So in case anyone's curious, this was a V2.2 that literally got fully built, and I never finished wiring it because I got sucked into World of Warcraft, and then 2.4 came out, so now I'm ripping it apart to rebuild it. Okay, I'll turn the music off. I don't know, is that any better? Well, this is sort of anti-war because I'm taking it apart. Yeah. This was the Mobius that was going in here. Or actually, it was going to be this standalone jetpack. If anyone's ever seen one yet in person, this is a standalone jetpack. That's what was going to go in here before 2.4. Yeah, it's going to be 2.4. Got all the parts. Yep. I got the TS100, and then what I have is one of those cheap 360 watt, I think 24 volt power supplies. I picked it off Amazon. Into the case for it, I got a bunch of connectors. So I have like a cord for powering this. I can use it to charge my lipos for my drone, that sort of thing. Yeah, if you have a TS100, you want to run it off like 24 volt. It's so much better. and flash the custom firmware on it. I haven't had any issues with OMCs. I have a ton of them. This one's running the spec 84 ounce. The small V2 you've seen in all those videos are actually running 64 ounce OMC steppers for the X and Y. I haven't had any issues. I'm very, if it ain't broke, don't mess with it. So if I start having issues, I'll try them. But up here in Canada, they're quite ridiculously priced. So I'm going to be sticking with the OMCs for now. I love my Allen keys. Don't want to lose the whole board. There we go. That should. Yeah. Okay. Hall effect board. You don't need these. I like them, but performance-wise, they don't really make too much of a difference. Yeah, that's a good thing with the zip chains. You just snip them and they fall apart. I'm rebuilding it as a 2.4. It would be on the GitHub pineapples. There should be a link to the Hall effect board. Yeah, there's a few people on the Discord that may have a few kicking around. They may sell them. Or still be making them. I don't know if was it JCL PCB or whatever that site everyone uses from China to make PCBs. I don't know if they actually will make them if you upload all the files. Andre would probably know more about that. So I am, everyone's switching to PTFE, I guess, now. I am reusing this. This is silicone wire. I am reusing the wiring loom because I already made it, and it's working fine in my other V2. So if it works, I'm just going to keep using it. So it's already made. I'm not going to throw it out. Need to not tangle it. Okay. I think is it the SQ1 the one that uses USB-C, or is that the TS80? Yeah, okay. So for anyone doing the teardown, you can reuse your belts for your X and Y from a 2.2 on a 2.4. They are actually slightly shorter on the 2.4. So as long as you don't, cut them while you're taking them out of your 2.2, you can reuse them. 2.1, I think it's still shorter than the 2.12. 2.1 to 2.2, I can't remember if you can reuse the belts. 2.4 is shorter than both, I believe. So if you're going to a 2.4, you should be fine. The Hall effect isn't faster than the micro switch for your X, Y, and stops. The big difference with the Hall effect is it's zero contact, so that means nothing ever actually touches anything. You're not hitting a little lever like on a micro switch, and you're not, ramming into it like you would with StallGuard or whatever the Prusa uses, skip detection or stall detection or whatever, which I'm not a fan of. But So it's not faster, it just makes it so that it never actually touches. So theoretically, it lasts forever. Whereas like the little Omron or KW10 micro switches, they wear out after like 10,000 cycles or something like that. Or they, yeah. So they're not faster. It's just another way of doing it. It just makes it a little light when you're home. It's kind of cool. Yeah, and you can adjust the position. So if for whatever reason you want the home further away from your maximum, you can do that. Every time I tear one of these apart, I always tell myself I'm going to fish out all these hex nuts that are buried in everything, and I never do. They're so cheap to buy. Screws I save though. Let's see. I don't know, I need some music. It's too quiet. Yeah, I use the cheap $3 photos. They work. Yeah, those little Meanwhile power supplies are tiny. He's probably using it as to power the Raspberry Pi. On the V0, it's spec to use a buck converter instead of a separate power supply to power the Pi. Oh, there we go. So the BL Touch is very finicky. It's very susceptible to heat. It's very susceptible to interference from other electronics in the area. They break easily. The deployment mechanism can fail. Since we're using a metal bed, you know, it's a cast aluminum tooling plate, most of us have spring steel on top of it now. An inductive probe is just much more reliable and less likely to fail and cheaper than a BL Touch, and also it fits the form factor of the tool head better. I had a BL Touch. I ran a BL Touch on my V1 for a bit until it failed, and it was a legit one. And honestly, it was never reliable enough for me. If you were moving around too fast during your homes, it would false positive and your readings would be all over the place. I never liked it. I get better results with a $2 probe from China. Yeah, it swings all over the place. Any upsides? My V2.26 over here still has the 2.2 Z. I might swap it to the, I might take it apart at some point just to make sure my 80-tooth printed gears aren't oblong or anything. But so far, I haven't changed the Z on that thing at all. It's only running at 2.4 gantry. It's totally not because I'm lazy. I took the back beam out because I had to make a longer one for my V2 that's up. So I took this one out and chopped it down to make the longer one for V2.26. So unfortunately, this guy gets to be all fancy and enjoy a silver China extrusion for the new rear back beam. Fancy. Oh yeah, I want 3 of these. This one's not stripped. Damn it. I could, but I'm not. Damn it. Like on this guy, I am going with the 2.4 Z. You know, I have, you know, brand new 2.2 on here that's never been used. I do have the pouch 82, so I'm going to go with that. Plus, I would actually like to have one boron that is spec instead of just a hodgepodge of pre-release printed parts that I just never get around to printing the final iteration because it's working. Oh, and a tip, whenever you're building or taking one of these apart, take the bed off first and put the bed on last, because without the bed in, it's a lot easier to move around the frame and flip it and whatnot. That takes quite a bit of weight out of it. Yeah, unfortunately, because this thing's never actually ran, it's not really an interesting teardown. There's no wear and tear or anything on here. Okay, now let's take the belts off. Now, for the Z belts on the going from 2.2 to 2.4, if you didn't flush cut them, so if you left a little bit hanging out and just kind of zip tied it up, you may be okay. But the last time I checked, and this was a few beta revisions ago, the Z belts are a little bit longer on 2.4 versus a 2.2. I think we have a temporary spacer somewhere, or somebody made one up because they flush cut them and they didn't want to get all new 9mm belts. but I don't know if that's in the final release. I'd have to check on that. But this was as of a few weeks ago. So this is the fun part. The screws that hold the pivot mount here, that mounts to the carriage or the rail. The Loctite that I used, as I was trying it out, is the blue stuff, which is a little too good. So what happened was they're stripped, so they just spin in place and they do not come out. Oh, he finally came out. Okay, I'll fail on that one. This one. Yeah, that one is not going anywhere, and unfortunately, it is spinning in place. Get badges. The 2.4 manual, I am not a manual guy. I've never used one, so I wouldn't even know how to design one. But they are in progress, same with the 1.8 manual. The V0 manual is out in a beta release right now. It's pinned in the Discord. Where is what I wanted? Pineapples. Will I be printing PIF parts? I'm going to try and get back into it. As of right now, hopefully. I need to stock up. I was doing PIF parts with eSun ABS Plus. My go-to. Unfortunately, that stuff is rare as hell in Canada right now. So we'll see. I'm going to try and get back into it because, you know, quarantine life, and can't really do anything else anyways. But if I do get back into PIF, it, again, will be like I did it before, and it'll only be Canadian parts. Just because I don't like dealing with international shipping because it's a pain in the ass, and it's definitely not worth it shipping from Canada to the US. So what happened was this screw here screws into here with a nut, and I used too good of a Loctite. So when I try to undo it, it just spins. So I'm kind of having to hack away at it to try and take it apart. Oh, not tonight. I don't think staying up that late would be good. I might start hacking away at it. We'll see. But put it this way, putting the 2.4 gantry on my V2.2 that took about 3 hours, and I reused all the wiring. So it's pretty much disassemble mechanicals, reinstall mechanicals, you know, screwing with wiring. This guy got to do all the wiring. And €5. Congratulations, you're the first person to donate. I didn't even know you could do that. Thank you. Cool. Right now, water, because it's actually the kids in bed. I could get to beer, but I don't know if I can drink on. I normally prefer my scotch normally. Oh yeah, and when you're taking this stuff apart, careful your rail doesn't go flying off the end.
Oh, that's where that screw went. Oh, this is annoying. There we go.
And one side. Hello, Eddie. And lay out your wiring all at once. So what I normally do for wiring, because again, dev life and what's the manual, I usually start at the end. So I'll start at like the hot end, and I'll run like one wire, and I'll just kind of eyeball it all the way through and down, and then I'll give it an extra like 20 or 30% just because I'm paranoid of cutting it short, and then I'll make all my wires for the hot end and start running it back, and then when I get to the XY joint, I'll add in the 4 wires for my end stop, run that, add my motor wires in, and run that all the way down. So my wiring looms always start long, and then once I get everything, you know, run into the base compartment, I'll trim it all up and make it look pretty at that point. Yeah, the harness was pre-built. I built it. And what I would do is for the tape chains, I would build it around. For the zip chains, I built it around. But for if you use like the China chains, for example, they open up. So they open up, so you can run all your wire through, and then you just close it. So you don't have to like fish it through or anything. And for the chains, if you can print end pieces if you don't, you know, you use them for more than one printer, because each set is like a meter long and only comes with one end piece on each end. So if you don't want to, you can get by with just 1 meter worth. You can just print end pieces. They come in a bag. Like it's, I don't know, bag that big. Honestly, for the price, buy China chains. I guess it's nice. I guess it's expensive. Zip chains are cheap and free, but in terms of man hours, if you're going to spend more than an hour putting them together, it's cheaper to just buy China chain. In terms of your time. Time is money, friend. Oh God, spares. Don't get me started on spares. This guy right here is built out of spares from Vorons. Literally, I had to buy a bed and a motor. But other than that, this is all spares. Harness pin board. Well, with Clipper, what I was thinking, I was just going to strap a ramps to my tool head and just run a USB cable. It would do the same thing. It's Clipper. You can have as many controllers as you want. Hey, Steven. Yeah, this is going to be rebuilt as a 2.4. I don't know if I'm going to start tonight, but we'll see. Because the problem is I have like boxes of screws I have to reorganize before I actually jump into a build. And I got the little thing here with all the drawers, but everything is an absolute mess right now from tearing down my other V2 to make the 2.4 update. So I need to sort some shit out first. Well, actually, what I do is I have my vise here. I just have the arm out, and you cut the wire to length, you crimp the end on it, and then you just like I like the silicone wire because of the colors, and I just keep a notepad. You can see my shitty writing, where it's like, oh, these wires do what? So in loom 1, in bundle 1, orange is thermistor, for example. And then I just crimp all the ends and then put them all in and write it down, and then crimp again. Why don't you use Duet and RepRap? My V2.2 1E6, the one that's up and functional, runs Duet with RepRap. So it is possible. The problem with the Duet is the hardware is good, but expensive, and you don't really gain anything versus, like, for the longest time, spec was 2 ramps and a Raspberry Pi running Clipper, and you were getting the performance equal to or greater than a Duet. So why would you spend the hundreds that you would need on a Duet and a Duex? Because remember, you need to run 7 drivers with this guy. So it's not so much it's just the cost thing. Yeah, everyone's going to the PTFE wires. They're all black. Off the Discord. Jakobos. Lo-fi hip-hop beats to relax to. Yeah, Railcore, you can run a Railcore on Clipper, you can run a Voron on Duet. I'm pretty sure you can do Marlin now if you have a single board solution that has all the drivers. I haven't seen anyone do that though. What should I do with my 2.1 parts? Bin them. If you got one of those Philistrators, maybe, but there's really not much you can reuse in terms of like printed parts. Yeah, see, the problem is, Jeff, I live in Canada, so Amazon up here sucks. So we don't get any of the good shit, ever. Am I selling these printers or just putting a build sheet out? If you go to vorondesign.com, Stephen, you can find the STLs for the 2.4. You can find the CAD files for the previous revisions, but the current revisions, the CAD files aren't out, just the STLs. We will have manuals for all the current revisions once they're done. You can find the bill of material list along with a sourcing guide, but there is no kit like a Railcore or a Prusa. You can't go to a store. There are a few vendors that carry hardware kits, I believe, like Digimock has some, I believe, but there's no like, pretty much it's all self-sourced. This is just a hobby for us. Like, there is no company backing this. There's no sponsors. There's no, it's just a bunch of guys kind of fucking around designing a printer. Oh, God damn it, Jeff. Thank you. That will be put towards good use. Meltic. I don't have no fancy streamer thing that pops up and plays a MIDI file or GIF. That just lets you know. Or Scotch. Scotch is a good choice. I'm actually out of Scotch right now. Shit. Wait, no. I have some Game of Thrones Scotch left. It's better than the ending of Game of Thrones. I'll say that. Damn it. Yep, these ones strip too. So, future reference, and this applies to all Voron revisions, the screws that hold the part mounts to the rail carriage that attaches to your gantry. Make sure you don't go overkill with the Loctite, because when you go to get them out, it'll just spin the nut in there and push the plastic out of the way, and then you have to kind of mess around to get them out. Might be. For the store, if you go to the Pouch Discord, like part of or on the Voron Discord in the Pouch section, I believe they have links to all their Voron kits. Shipping is a complete mess right now with the Rona. I ordered a Dragon hot end, which I do have, so it does, shipping still exists, but I ordered that mid-January, and I received it end of March, like March 29th or something. Like, shipping right now is just completely messed. I bought a computer monitor from Best Buy a week and a half ago. I've had one shipping update in the past week, and that's that it was processed. So everything is kind of mixed with shipping. Cost to build minus the board really depends on what part of the world you're in. I think the average BOM cost we graciously say 1,200 US ish. It depends on what you already have, what you can source locally. Like some things like the bed, if you can, you got a buddy who works in a metal shop, you can get that for dirt cheap. Or if you're, middle of nowhere where you're paying a crazy high shipping price for shipping 10 pounds of aluminum. The bomb cost is budget for around 1,200 for the smaller ones. The bigger they are, the more they are. The 350 is big. The jump from a 250 to a 300 isn't as bad as the jump from a 300 to a 350. Just for you're looking at a 14-inch bed. 14-inch PI isn't common. The bed heater goes up a lot in price. But yeah, 1,300 US. I've never had a problem with Pouch. Their shipping's always been very good. I don't know, but it's China. Who knows? Be hit and miss. But everything I've ordered from them has shown up in a decently timely fashion. When did you order? Because if you ordered during Chinese New Year, it probably would have not been shipped until after that whole 3-week period with their extra week they had was finished. Rona and all that. So you ordered 3 weeks ago and hasn't shipped yet? Yeah, at that point I would be a little questioned, but usually Pouch is good. They're one of the better Chinese companies I've found. I've never had an issue with anything. I've never had QC issues. Even Triangle Labs, I've had one thing bad out of like a dozen orders, but Pouch I've never had an issue with. I need to find something. That's great. Yeah, right now there's a holiday going on in China. Now remember, Chinese holidays are longer because everyone leaves the cities to go back home for a lot of these holidays. So everything shuts down for before and after the holiday too. That's why like Chinese New Year, which is basically their Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all rolled into one. It's like 2 weeks the country doesn't exist. Okay. Nova Hot End. I have never heard of a Nova Hot End. Do you have a link to that? Yeah, I ordered my 82 mid-ish February, or no, late February, early March, and they got here in about a month. I hate when shit seizes. There we go. How many cubic feet or cubic millimeters can it put out? Because right now, I know I don't have any high flow hot ends. I have a Dragon, but I've never used it. Just because I printing that fast, print quality goes to shit. Simply, you can't melt the plastic fast enough. Unless you're printing really thick layers, then higher flow hot ends make more sense at thicker layers. So if you're printing with like a 0.8 nozzle at like 0.4, 0.5 millimeter heights, trying to print really fast with like 0.4 nozzle at 0.2 layer height, you simply just can't melt the plastic and then heat it back up. Or yeah, melt the plastic and then cool it down quick enough to get a good result. Yeah, I tried doing the same speed as Jared's video, and I had a layer skip about halfway through. Yeah, 28 millimeters cubed is roughly what you'll get out of a high flow dragon or a high flow mosquito. Jared's video was pushing 25 millimeter cube, I believe. It depends on good quality. So, for example, all my parts here, I'll grab some. Okay, so this is, it's a 2.4 part. I grabbed it because it's on the top of the pile. So this is ABS, and I print these at what I call my production speeds. And what it is I print at 300 millimeters a second travel. Outer layer, so the one outer perimeter is 40 millimeters a second. All other perimeters are 80 millimeters a second. And infill is 120 millimeters a second, I believe. The travel, your Z-hop, and your infill is where you save time when printing. And it's logarithmic. It's diminishing scale. So the amount of time I would save if I had like all perimeters at 80 millimeters a second instead of just the inner perimeters. Would it save maybe a couple minutes, but in terms of print quality, it's a noticeable difference. Yes, I always run Z-hop. On a Voron, the Z moves so fast that you just I always have Z-hop on. Okay, so this is what happens when you can't get that, because that nut wants to spin and not come out. And you take apart and you try and squish it in a vise to get it to break, and it doesn't break because ABS. If it has the same form factor as a V6 and mounts the same as a V6, groove mount needs to die, by the way. But if it does mount via groove mount and it has the same form factor as a V6, you should be able to just throw it in a Voron if you wanted to. I'm tearing apart my 2.2 because it's going to be a 2.4. The thing is, with those high flow hot ends, I don't print. I don't print in a way that it would benefit from that. Let me take a look here. Yeah, I don't have it. I used to have a. Actually, I'll be back in 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. So it's going to be hard to see, but the surface on this guy, this was printed at, I believe, 150 millimeters a second on a V2.1 or 2.2, I can't remember, in PLA. But the problem is you're laying down the plastic, right? So as your hot end's moving along, you're laying down the plastic, and it's semi-liquid because you've melted it. That's why whenever you see the videos of, oh my god, 300 millimeters a second, super fast printing. It's always a cube or a circle, or it's a simple shape, because as you're laying down the plastic, it has to stick to the previous layer, but also it kind of gets dragged along. So if you do a sudden sharp move, the plastic will just ooze off and drag over. If you look at the video I put up yesterday of trying to print the AB motor modules parts at, what was it, 300 millimeters a second, it looks like garbage, because every time it does one of those drastic direction changes, it drags the plastic with it. It's not cooling it enough for it to stay in place, essentially. Now, if I were, I've seen them, if I was printing, you know, life-size models of people with a 1 millimeter nozzle at 0.6 layer height, yes, high flow would make a lot more sense then. But at using a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, really going beyond, say, like 120 millimeters a second, you're not going to get good results, because you can't melt and then cool the plastic fast enough to get a good finish, especially surface finish. So if you were, you know, if you're just rough drafting something and you don't care how it looks, you just need a physical item to just, oh, okay, it fits. Now I'm going to make the real item. Then yeah. But if you're, you know, hey, look at my wonderful printer, and you look at it and everything looks like garbage on it because you printed all the parts at 300 millimeters a second, it's kind of a waste. Plus, it's logarithmic. Those AB motor modules, printing at my normal production speeds was a hair over 4 hours. Printing them at 300 millimeters a second added, or yeah, saved like an hour, if that. So it's like a 20 to 25% time save for horrible quality. So for the wiring termination for the motors and the hot end, for the motors, use a microfit 3 connector. How I like to wire my microfits is I have the, was it the female end on the dead end of the current. So it's the male end that has the power. On something this small, it doesn't matter, but think of it like, you know, your electrical socket, right? The male end is not live, because otherwise you'd electrocute yourself. So but yeah, on the for the motors, it's just microfit 3s, and then for the hot end, you can use microfit 3 as well. There we go. Good thing about taking something apart, when you know you're not reusing it, you can just break it. That's what happens with nut seas. I don't plan on deleting it. It should be up. I don't really know how YouTube works with this kind of stuff. I don't have no fancy setup. This is just a Logitech webcam hooked up to a 10-year-old laptop right now. That's why I don't have a fancy setup. Well, thanks, Paul. For the 2.4 release, actually, here. For the 2.4 release, I don't think I'll do like a full build along just because the manual is not out yet, and I don't want to make a video on, okay, this is how you put together the Z module on a 2.4, and then the manual comes out and it's a different order of operations. But what I'll probably end up doing is make separate videos down the line where I'll just print off one and just put it together. I got enough spare parts, and make videos on that. But I don't think I'll do an actual like follow along as we build a whole printer, because I don't want to wait for the manual. I've already done this once, so I kind of know how it goes together somewhat. Okay. Oh god. These are so overly complicated. It is ridiculous. So I'm going to do this in frame here. We're going to tear one of these apart, just so you can see how long it is, because these are, I don't know why, well, I kind of know why, but these are more over-engineered than they need to be. It's full of good ideas, though. So the reason we have the belt here on the 2.1 and the 2.2, the reasoning for that is we had dampers. So you would have a damper on your motor. The problem is with a damper, the motor will lean because there's give now, right? So what you do is you have a leaning motor with the belt running the drive shaft. The drive shaft is forced straight. There's a bearing on each end. So that way, theoretically, it gets rid of the lean in the belt, which if you were to throw like a damper on an i3 style printer, you would see the lean would actually cause ripples in the print because the belt would move around and it caused issues, essentially. So this was to do that, and also it made it so that you could simply, loosen the motor, take the belt off, and then your X and Y belts would be completely removed or free to move. So you can, work on your printer, move everything around if you want to swap motors or whatever. You didn't have to worry about unbelting everything because it wasn't directly in the belt path. And not really over-engineered, just kind of, hey, let's throw all these great ideas. And then when you step back and realize, wait a minute, this is a 3D printer. It's like grease. People are like, oh, so-and-so recommends this grease, and this company that makes rails recommends this grease, and this company that makes rails recommends this grease. It's a 3D printer, not a CNC machine worth multi-million dollars. You're building it in your basement. Just throw some grease on it, it'll be good. Just don't use molly grease. And I know, Paul. And we have it in the dev team too. We brainstorm something. It's like, oh yeah, it's a great idea, and then someone will be like, you could just do this, and it's a million times simpler, and you get the same result. And it's like, yeah, but this one was fun. Yeah, so that's why we had the belts twofold. It made it easier for maintenance, and then it also got rid of the wall induced by damper. The problem is, though, that was back when everyone had 84988s, and now with TMCs, you don't need dampers because TMCs are quiet, especially with the 2209s. So now that's one reason it's gone, and then the lean was actually never really that big of an issue. Pretty much, like some people like to. I love when people are complaining about like extremely minor imperfections, and it's like we're spewing molten plastic out of a brass nozzle made in China. You're not going to get 1 thou tolerance on your parts. Some of us can, but again, we're spewing molten plastic out of a nozzle flying around at 150 millimeters a second. Okay, that's garbage. That's garbage. Oh my god, so many parts on this. I think I can pull it out now. That is the simplest way of explaining 3D printing. It is a glue gun. It's funny. I got into 3D printers because I've seen an Iron Man mask once and I wanted to make it. And I've been doing this for 2.5 years and I still don't have an Iron Man mask. I got a lot of more ones though. Resin printers, and unless if I was still into Warhammer 40K, I would be all over resin printer. But unless you do minifigs, there's really, I don't see a huge market for resin printers. They're really good at what they do, but it's very niche. The only reason this part's here is, like, this is a completely separate part simply because it's easier to get a belt in. Now it's garbage. Yeah, resin printers are not one of the things I'll probably ever get into. Yeah, Warhammer 40K. I had a 15 or 2,000 point Imperial Guard army at one point. That was years ago, though. Okay. We should have said something, Andre. I would have sent them to you. At least on this one, the holes aren't eggs. So on Core XY, okay, so people always love to go big. Go as big as you need, not as you want. I started off on a Monoprice Selects Mini that had 120 millimeters cubed, which is the same size as a V0, by the way. I outgrew that within about a month, and then I went to a V1, and of course I went and built a 300 by 300 by 400 V1, which traditional Core XY, all that mass, all the weeble wobbles, and then I went to build a 250 V2, and it's a workhorse. So Core XY, because you use the same belts for your X and Y movement, they just fight each other. The longer the belts, the more, I guess it'd be like stacking tolerances, for example. The longer the belts, the harder it is to keep them properly tensioned. Basically, the bigger you go, you can't really run as fast accelerations, as fast max speeds. Jerk or square corner velocity has to be slightly lower. Now in Vorons, I think 300 is the sweet spot. 250 is fine. I've never printed anything that I wished, I was like, oh, I wish I had a bigger printer, because I print an ABS, and ABS welding is a thing. But crap. See, another one of these. There we go. But yeah, so sum it up, basically it's just you have to go slightly slower on a bigger build, and hopefully your doorways aren't too narrow in your house. A 2.5 one, we're not even looking at that right now. We're not even finished with 2.4 yet. Still working on the manual. The goal of 2.4, by the way, was basically take the awesome printer that is a 2.2 and make it simpler and cheaper, which it is a little bit cheaper. It would be more cheaper than a 2.4, and we do have like on one of the, we did an internal thing where we looked at the numbers, and it is cheaper than a 2.2. One of the reasons it's not as cheap is because 4 of these guys is like 40 bucks. Whereas before on the previous V2, they were just printed, which cost like $1 for the hub. So it would be $50 cheaper than a 2.4. It would actually be cheaper than a 2.1 if we didn't have the the spec metal 80 tooth. To be more. Yeah, Joe Gray, I outgrew the MP Select Mini in about a month. It's a great printer, but it's cheap, and you can't really, once you outgrow it, you can't do anything with it. The V0 is like a perfect printer for messing around with. I will say though, it does take a little bit more, not skill, but know how to build, just because it's such a tight envelope. You really kind of have to build it properly because there's really not much room. So all that was taken apart, the 2.2 module. Here's a 2.4 module. Are you ready? Done. Motor goes in, and you put the screw in, some bearings go into. That's it. Much simpler. What do you do with the trash ABS? I throw it out. It's going to sound a little, the Lorax is going to be pissed at me, but I work in injection molding. We throw out hundreds of pounds of ABS a day on a normal day, and it goes right in the bin because you really can't recycle, purge ABS out of a barrel. So the amount of ABS I throw out is infinitesimally small next to any manufacturing facility. How do I vent my ABS fumes? I do not. My printer is enclosed. So the thing with ABS fumes, they're kind of oily. It leaves an oily residue. So what you do is you print with your printer closed. Obviously, you're printing ABS, you want to enclose it. And after your print's done, you basically wait for it to come back up to room temperature, and then open it. So all the harmful VOCs, which is like an oily resin, you'll see it'll build up over a couple of years on the inside of your printer. It just settles on the inside of your printer instead of floating around your room. And as for the fumes, again, I work in injection molding. We have 4 tryout presses in our shop, up to a 3,300 ton press that can run 100,000 pound fascia molds for automotive industry. And we have no ventilation. Well, we have some exhaust, but not much. And we go through hundreds of thousands of pounds of plastic in a day. And our air quality is perfectly satisfactory to breathe without a mask or any sort of worries. So I have no problem running a printer printing 1 kilogram of ABS over a couple days in my house. VOCs are bad, but it's all about level. A banana will give you cancer because it has radiation. It gives off radiation, but it gives off so little radiation that it's going to take a long time to give you cancer. Same with, walking behind a car that's running. You breathe the exhaust there. It's bad for you, but nobody worries about it. So the reason people don't like ABS is because cheap ABS stinks. Yeah, you might get a headache from it, but it's not like you're going to drop dead. It also helps my printers are in a room in the basement. So but yeah, if you are worried about fumes, we did improve the filtration system on the 2.4. It should be a more efficient, proper filter on the back. So if you put a charcoal HEPA filter or whatever you put in there, that should handle most of the fumes. The good thing about it is it will help when you finish a print. So what a lot of people who have the exhaust system will do is at the ending G code, they'll have the fan kick on max, and that helps cool down the chamber. I have a toddler in the house. I'm not, that kind of sounds bad, but honestly, if it was a major issue, it would have been screamed at by now. Now I'm saying don't let your toddler play in the printer, but in a, you know, an average sized room, it'll probably disperse to the point where it's not really an issue. I remember reading a chart at one point, you get more VOCs from cooking bacon than standing next to a printer for an hour. Dropping bearings everywhere. Yeah, but if you burn your bacon, you can make a post on the 3D bacon subreddit saying how you got what did he say he had? Oh yeah, arsenic poisoning from his bacon. PLA smells like popcorn. PETG, I can't even remember what it smells like because I haven't printed this stuff in 2.5 years. But PET is plastic bottles. You add glycol to the plastic in plastic bottles and you get PETG. PLA I do print occasionally for models. That's about it. Sure, that was a bearing. I have printed the fan ducts in my V2.26 are polycarbonate. It's PC Plus. I don't know what blend it is, but it's PC Plus. It prints fine. Actually, turned out pretty good. I like it. I just haven't gotten around to printing more of it. But yeah, people have printed polycarbonate just fine. Polycarbonate, it can be brittle, I believe, if you don't print it with exactly the perfect setting. So it's a little finicky. It is Cinco de Mayo soon. So Cinco de Mayo is on Taco Tuesday, but everything's going to be canceled because of a disease named after Mexican beer. Yeah, I hear you, Austin. I go to work, I come home, I go to bed, I wake up, I make breakfast, I go to work, repeat. Where are you at where the bars are open? Well, if it makes you feel any better, I built a V2.0 and took that apart and built a 2.1, took that apart, built a 2.2, and took that apart and built a 2.4. Oh yeah, Texas. Yeah, we still can't go anywhere. Basically, you can get groceries. Restaurants are open, but it's all curbside pickup or delivery only. You can't like go out anywhere except for Costco, but you gotta wear a mask. Oh God, I can't even count how many Mobius I've put together over the past 2 years. Different revisions of Mobius. I could probably do one blindfolded right now. So many revisions to that thing. And by the way, the 2.4, that's gone. The 2.4 upper, well, front XY eyeler's are now just 2 pieces or 3 pieces. So even those were simplified a bit. And it's 1 screw for tensioning versus 2, so you don't have to worry about balancing anymore. Yep, I'm firmly on the direct drive train. Direct feed, actually. It's on a direct drive. But 3D printing terminology is completely backwards and non-consistent. So we just go with whatever everyone's talking about. Oh, it's on the floor. I'm taking apart the gantry right now. I just want to make room so people actually see what I was doing. Yeah, luckily I don't have to square the frame up, or I should probably check the frame, make sure it's still square. I put it together 2 years ago. Yeah, the afterburner is nice. Well, technically it's the clockwork. The afterburner is the tool head. The clockwork is the extruder on the tool head. And that's why the extruder on the Voron Zero is the pocket watch, because it's a smaller clockwork. Yeah, that looks like a little interesting little thing. Yeah, that's all Jared's doing. That was all him. Planetary gears and all that. Overall creation of 3D printed parts for printers versus not is. Are you talking about like, what do you mean there, Justin? Yeah, that I told that guy, he posted it in like our the one channel we have where we post, hey, look at what I printed on my printer, and I'm like, hey, you should post it, tag Noctua on Twitter or something, because they love whenever people do anything with their beige and brown. They love it. And sure enough, like the next day, there was a Tom's Hardware article. The article's up on Reddit. Yeah. Yeah, we saw the spike from that. We had like double the amount of, or I don't know, a lot more than normal join our Discord that day. Oh yeah, there you go, Austin. Oh, okay, so like for my printers, how much is done, like how much printing do I do in terms of like in Voron development and how much for like personal stuff? Or what do you? So you're asking if I spend like more time printing Voron stuff versus, printing knickknacks or Reddit Karma items? Yeah, I'm probably more than half easily, probably 3/4 more, because everything I print is Voron related. For the first few months of last year, I did it for 2.1. I didn't do it for 2.2. I was doing printed 4. I printed 20-something parts kits in like 4 months, just back to back. Which is a good thing about a Voron. I start remotely, and I don't even come down here until the parts are done. It really depends. A lot of people probably buy a 3D printer. They go buy that Ender 3 and they print a few things they find on Thingiverse and they never touch it again. I guarantee that's a huge market of the 3D printing market. So many people get into it, but don't actually go anywhere with it. I had a buddy at work, he bought a Prusa. He was going to get into making computer mice, I think, like gaming computer mice or something, and he dropped that. He did one or two, he didn't like them, and then I think he sold it. And then we realized how limiting it actually is. I work in injection molding. I have a little mold I built in my shop class during my apprenticeship. It makes a phone case. It's not even a real phone case. It's like a half-scale phone case. The tool weighs 75 pounds of tool steel, and took 20 weeks of shop class to build. And then, of course, you need an injection mold, and that'll make you one item. If you want to make something else, you have to make a whole other mold. So FDM will never replace injection molding, at least anytime soon, because we can punch out a fascia. Your car bumper is a fascia. Okay, your bumper is behind the fascia. The plastic part you see is called a fascia. Those weigh 10 pounds of ABS. We can make one every minute, 20 seconds, and you literally take it, you cut the runners off, and paint it. Versus if you bought a car and that's what all the plastic pieces on your car look like, nobody would buy that car. So yeah, FDM will never scale. It doesn't scale. It's good for very low production run. So Prusa, for example, if they were to get molds to make all the parts for the Prusa i3, at their rate now, they probably would actually save money and time doing it. But 4 or 5 years ago, when they weren't as big and the demand wasn't as high, it wouldn't have made sense for them to get all tooling for that. So yeah, prototypes and low volume production are where FDM shine. Back to the frame. I need to get a bigger desk. Go buy like a cheap $8 LED shop light and just rest it across the top. That's what I do for lights. I know people got the fancy LEDs. I just have one of these cheap shop lights and I rest it on top. And there's my light. Verifying squareness. Get a tape measure. I have a tape measure. Get a tape measure. Measure corner to corner and corner to corner. They should be the same. If they are not the same, it is not square. Tolerance-wise, if it's out, a mil less than a mil, you're fine. Because it's like, for example, if you're running a 2.2 Z module and you're running a 2.4 gantry with upper Z, your motor is actually out. The belt pass is out, I believe, 1 millimeter. We looked into it. It's out 1 millimeter. So that means over the whole 250 millimeters of travel, for example, on V2.2 over there, if I tell it to move 250 millimeters of Z, it'll move 249.7 millimeters, which is, or somebody else did the math, or 0.8, yeah. We worked it out. It's like 1 or 2 layers over 250 millimeters. It's feckle, basically. So you have to be able to accept that, okay, if you're building a printer at home, You're not going to get, 1 thou tolerance on every dimension, and this isn't a CNC. You're not making lens tools. You're spewing molten plastic. So yeah, you want to get your frame as square as possible, obviously. But if the best you can do, and you're fiddling around, and the best you can do is get it within a mil, it's good enough. Obviously, the more accurate, the better. I built mine. If you have a electric stove with a glass top, that's flat. Or if you're, you got marble countertops somewhere, basically just try and find the flattest thing you have to build it on, and that'll help a lot. Yep, the granite. If you work in any tool industry or machining industry, you have what's called a granite layout table. What it is just a slab of granite that you use for height measurement or laying out stuff, and it's just really flat granite. You can reuse them. I get that question every now and then with, oh, I really like this part on my 2.2, like especially like the cosmetic stuff. You can reuse it. The one advantage with the new one is that there's a slot, so you don't have to feed the belt through. You can just do up your belt and then put this on. We used to have a surface plate at work that was bigger than a pool table. That thing was massive, and it was within, I think at one point, like I remember reading a certificate from the highest to the lowest point on it was less than like 0.01 thou or something stupid like that, or half a thou actually. It might have been half a thou, but over something the size of a pool table, that's kind of ridiculous. Okay, so these are 2.2 beta ones then. A lot of my printers are running pre-release stuff because we'll do 1 or 2 more revisions after I put the thing on, but what I have is working, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to take it off to put the one with the slot on. It's already on. Okay. But yeah, as for using old parts, so this is stuff for the 2.4, which is this guy. Bonus points to whoever can tell me what this part is. It is from a previous 4-on revision. I don't even know how to pronounce your name. Nizlog? Yes, correct. Bone and inlet. Bone and inlet from what? It is a Voron part. So yeah, it's a Bowden tube guide from V2.0. All it does is just route the Bowden in, because I don't run with an exhaust, so I don't want to bother printing that big whole assembly. I just use the V2.0 one because it's simple and it works. I think we have one for 2.4 that uses the one of the Bowden connectors, so it actually locks it in place. But yeah, spool for afterburners. Oh, yeah, those are 90. So many parts in the garbage. For Afterburner, I run at least on the 250, just because it's so short. I actually run a PTFE tube down to the tool head, just so the filament doesn't get whipped around. On this guy, I'll probably let it just kind of float. We'll see, because we're worried about when the tool head's moving around, especially like if you spend some time printing over here near the back corner, so the filament is taut basically, and then you do a rapid move over here. We're basically worried about the filament breaking. So if you have a PTFE tube that's, you know, as long as your normal Bowden tube would be for Bowden feed setup, that means your filament wouldn't be ripped around. So I did run without one for a bit there, but now we do recommend running a Bowden tube down for the direct feed heads, just simply for so you don't risk breaking filament. Yes, 3mm ID. I actually on 26 over there, I found some clear PTFE, because who cares what quality it is? It's just a feed, right? And it's 3mm ID, so it's not like it's going to be doing anything anyways. You know, high quality Bowden for it. So yeah, I found some clear stuff. So it's kind of cool. You can actually see the filament getting fit in. Not that it does anything, but. I've never been able to feed the hot end, just pushing the filament in and have it go right in. It always catches. So I still have to open it up and manually feed it in every time. I have no luck when it comes to feeding that tool head. Okay. Which is the only downside to the Afterburner tool head. When it was Bowden, if you ran out of filament trying to print, you could just, you know, pause it and just swap it out easily. Versus now you have to open the chamber, which if you're printing ABS could be an issue. I wish I had a picture of the RS695 bearings as idlers. I am running the 695 idlers, so just a double stack of them instead of the two. Basically, instead of running like these on my XY joint, I'm running just two F695 bearings stacked on top of each other. That is the only place on the XY belt system where the teeth are in, and honestly, I haven't noticed any issues with imperfections in the print from the teeth. So yeah. Yeah, see, the problem is though, Eddie, it hits the lip and then it just pushes the Bowden tube out because we don't have a manual, like anything to actually firmly grip the filament. And I don't want to just glue the filament or the Bowden tube in. Closure heater to control ambient temps. For ABS on my 250, the bed itself gets the ambient temperature to around, depending on where you are in the chamber, 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. That is plenty for printing ABS, their whole build volume, basically. Some people have looked into putting chamber heaters in, but it's a niche use case. If you're printing where you need temperatures hot enough, where you need a chamber heater, you risk running into issues with your printed parts. I wouldn't want, even with like normal pure ABS printed parts. I wouldn't want chamber temps 70 or 80 C. You're not going to risk the parts breaking, but they start to deform. ABS is good till about 90 or 100 depending on the blend, but I wouldn't want to cut it that close. And then you also have issues with your belts and whatnot. This isn't meant to be a high temperature printer. Nobody's going to be printing peak on their boron. But yeah, the bed heater with the mass of the bed itself will get your chamber temperatures warm enough to do ABS, no problem. And polycarbonate too. I've had good luck with polycarbonate. Yeah, that's why I don't use the. We spec for the E3D ones, and the Gates ones or the pouch idlers, tooth idlers are pretty good too. We haven't had any failures yet internally. None of the devs have reported any issues with them exploding yet. But I have Vietnam flashbacks of the V1.55 days where all the idlers were those, and I had cheap China ones, and they were popping off quite regularly. So I just went straight to the F695s, and there are some pictures on the Discord I put up of just some cubes that I printed. I can't tell any difference. Now, some people are worried that with constantly having the teeth push against the belt or the idler, that may deform the teeth over time. However, those teeth don't feed into anything else that's toothed in the belt path anywhere. So I don't think it's going to be an issue long term. I haven't had any issues. I've been running them fine the past couple months, so I'm just going to keep running them. We did a bunch of side-by-side testing. The ripple you see may be more driver or motor related than teeth on smooth idlers, because a lot of people always think, oh, you see the ripple, it's caused by a belt on smooth idler. We might not be the case. Okay, water time. It's all clean because I never got to it. Nope, this printer never ran. I built it up as a 2.2, and then don't play WoW, kids. I have to relive my high school days again by completely getting absorbed into that game for about 6 months. And then when I came back, we were so far along in 2.4 development that I was like, well, screw it, I'm not going to finish it and then rip it right apart. So I just sat in the corner, and now I'm ripping it apart to build it as a 2.4. Actually, tighten these. There we go. Oh yeah, we got more in there. Look how well these are clamped on. I'm gonna have to flip this over. Hello. Why did I tighten everything so much? the back top to change up the wiring path, maybe umbilical. So the problem with umbilical cord, moving the MCU, you can have it anywhere. You can have it on the top, you can have it on the back. All it would do is save you a little bit of the wiring. It can easily be done. That part I'm not arguing. The problem with an umbilical cord is if you look at some of the taller V2s, like look at any of the 350s, and look how long the Bowden is. So imagine that, only it's a wiring loom, a heavy wiring loom, because there's a lot of wires. And you're still going to have to run wires to your X-Y joint too for the end stops. So what I would be worried about is it's not like a traditional Core XY where your gantry is always here. The problem is your gantry starts here and moves up, and as you move up, the belt, the loom could risk coming down and then impacting or colliding and getting tangled up. And with voltage and wires and electricity, that's not usually a good thing. Plus, I mean, come on, the chains, man, looks so clean. CNC machines don't have wires flying about. Well, proper ones. And then also, Justin, if you have the electronics on the back, they would be sticking out. Part of the design philosophy of the Boron is everything's contained within the frame, other than the basement compartment, obviously. So your printer footprint is the frame itself. If you look at a V1, you have the backpack that's internal, and then on the V0, all the electronics are contained within the bottom in a built-in backpack. So. Like theoretically, you literally could just strap a ramps to the tool head and have everything that's in the tool head wired to the ramps, and then have a single USB cable and, well, power cable too, running out. That is theoretically possible. The problem is, size. So you would have to design a PCB that would be stripped down, one driver and all that stuff. So it is possible. Duet is working on one, I believe. They might have one out in beta or something, a separate tool head MCU. But it would cut down on the wires, that's for sure. Another thing I would be worried about, though, is then it's in the chamber. And depending on what drivers and whatnot, you might have issues keeping the drivers cool. Because right now, all the electronics for this printer are underneath. So they're in their own separate, they're not affected by the print temperatures. Yeah, they were moving to CAN bus. CAN bus is it's like an Ethernet wire, right? And does it carry the power over the CAN bus too, or do you still need to run like a 24-volt line to it, or is the CAN bus all in one? Okay, so you still have to run. So it's just the thinky think pulses, not the actual power. Well, that's the thing with Clipper. You don't need to worry about CAN bus. Like with Clipper, you can just run a USB cable from your Raspberry Pi to wherever and have a controller there. So, like, you literally could just take a ramps and strap it to your tool head. Like, you don't need a special anything fancy. That's what I like about Clipper. If you wanted to, you can have your printer running off, you know, a Melzi board running your Z, a Duet running your XYE. You can have a ramps running a Prusa MMU, and then you can also have, you know, an SKR with a screen attached to it. You can have up to 4 controllers with it. And you just mix and match, and all you do in the config file, you tell it, this MCU has this pins do this, and it just does it. Screws. I don't know if the MMU actually does work with Clipper, but I'm just saying in theory, if the motors to it could be hooked up to, say, a ramps, and it would be its own thing with just a USB and power cable going to it. I'm sure somebody has figured out how to get it working with Clipper, though. Okay, so take part of Z drive. Garbage. And as for the Prusa MMU, anyways, I've still yet to see a proper way of doing multi-material that I like. We did make the shroud for the AV bigger in the latest revision from I think 8 or 9 days ago. So there is a little bit more room to hide it. Let me see. I think I got one. Should have one. Yeah, we did. It is bigger now, so there is a bit more room to hide more wiring. What you do is you basically hide some of the connectors here, and then you hide some of them behind. I know there's not as much room as with the doors, but we managed to jam, you know, an extruder into it, so we got so much room to work with. Man, this thing is way overbuilt. Yeah, it's funny, for the longest time everyone was so against direct feed. It was like, oh, we can't go as fast. And now we're like, wait a minute, the printer is actually beefy enough to handle a direct feed tool head. Maybe we should do it. I mean, somebody strapped a BMG to their tool head and it turns out it worked. They're like, oh, okay. Then we designed the afterburner. The only reason I would do Bowden now is if I wanted to do dual feed. A bunch of us have the Triangle Labs Y splitter. Mine's still in the bag somewhere from like a year ago when the idea first came up. But if you were going to do like Y splitter dual feed, Bowden would make sense then. If you weren't going to enclose the printer, I would have a jetpack on each Y beam on the outside. But that would make enclosing it hard. So I don't know if you would have a room behind X rail or the X beam to have 2 jetpacks. You might on a 350, but definitely not on like 250. These wonderful pieces. Into the garbage. So I can't remember, mine are short, mine are 55 millimeters. The Z modules on 2.4 use a 60 millimeter pin, the drive. I can't remember what 2.2 spec is, mine are 55 millimeters, and I think mine are long. And they might be 60, I don't know what spec is. That's something you may want to look into if you're doing the update. It's funny how many pieces on 2.2 are threaded together, and then we have none on 2.4. Isn't that a thing though? Like, I don't know. I've always done that with Allen keys. Like, you put it in, and then you get it loose, and then you just rotate it with your thumb. I don't know. See, the problem with index or IDEX, you would need 2 gantries basically. If you were to do straight up paired, where if you just wanted to print double of everything all the time, yeah, you could have 2 extruders and they would just move like this. But if you wanted to actually have them move independently, you would need to run another set of belts. So you would need 2 more AB motors and then 2 more belts. So IDEX isn't going to happen, really, unless somebody crazy decides to do one. Hello, Airdino. The only reason I would want dual extrusion would be if to do hips and ABS or support material. But even then, every Voron part is designed to print without support. And the very few that do, simply to make it easier for bridging, it's designed into it. The support's built into it. I've got 2 rolls of hips just sitting here. I need to find something to do with them. Honestly, if any of the Vorons were going to have a tool changer, it would be the 1.8. Of course, that would have to be designed first. But the problem with having it on like a V2, for example, is we don't have a fixed gantry. We have the flying gantry on the V2. So the problem you have is, right, printing. Okay, I want to change tool heads. Where is the other tool head going to be? is going to be here. It can't be here because then you're printing up here. You can't drop your gantry down to go grab it. So you're going to have it up here. So print, come all the way up, change. And it's got to be in the front because the tool head's mounted in front of the beam. So we would either have to completely reverse your beam and print on the back of the X beam and then still have it up here, but then you have the cable chain. And then your print volume would look kind of like, and then because you'd have to avoid where the printer's got to be able to get to where the other heads are. So yeah, so dual tool changing, it's common in the CNC world. Every good CNC machine does tool changing automatically. It's an industry staple. It's just trying to find a way that is economical, repeatable, and DIY was this problem. There is no boron 3. Or is there? We just came out with 3 printers, man. Now, to be fair though, 2.4 is pretty much all Russian cat food. 1.8 is pretty much all Eddie the engineer, and 0 is Nemgria. So the dev team isn't just one guy anymore working on one printer. We have people working on their own shit now. I designed the Raspberry Pi holder on the V0, so I have contributed something for once. But yeah, it's a big team now. If they're used for in market or Airdino, there are people. We do have a flea market on our Discord where people sell. I've seen the Osborne go up. This is a hobby that's not for everyone. Especially right now with financial situations and whatnot. And people have sold their Vorons, and they usually go pretty quickly because there is no way to buy a Voron. So really, the only way to buy a completed Voron, and there are people that just want to buy one, which I don't blame them. But there are people that just want to, turnkey buy a Voron, and they'll probably buy yours if you go to sell it down the line. Yeah, exit. Yeah, I took the mount for V2 and I changed the shape of it. I am told. Actually, no. I designed this thing. I took the jetpack and made the standalone version. So I hacked that up and designed some new parts for it. So yes, so I do IR CAD. I forgot I did that. It depends. I have seen completed ones go for sale. I see a lot where they get to the electrical and then they stop. But the thing with a Voron though, if they're following the manual, especially if they use pith parts too, so the printed parts are good, wrapping it up shouldn't be that hard unless they didn't follow the manual and the frame isn't square, and we've seen some pretty bad builds. I have seen the odd functional one though. It's been a while though. Like you're not going to find a used Voron as easily as you can find a used Ender, for example. If you've never built a printer before, I do recommend. I started with the V1. The V1 is a much simpler build. It's more traditional. There's less parts. There's less, It's a standard Core XY printer for the most part, and it is a bit cheaper. You only need 4 motors versus 7 and whatnot. But yeah, if you can't if you can't get into it, you can't get into it. I'll never fault anyone for that. FT kit. Ask Eddie. Oh yeah, you are Eddie. Never mind. You say ask Eddie about FT kits. He knows how to make those into forons. I hope 40 people are watching me kill a voron. I should have live streamed when I took apart my Monoprice Select Mini. That thing was bad. Yeah, taking them. Oh man, I threw those out when I cleaned everything over the past few days. On my Monoprice Select Mini, when I took it apart, the 6mm X or Y rods had trenches worn in them so deep a TIE fighter could probably fly down them. That thing was completely seized up. Yeah, the 1.8 being fully enclosed is a huge thing. Like I post a picture every now and then on the Discord of my V1.5. Back when this was a 1.5, how I enclosed it, and it wasn't pretty. Oh, they were bad. Like literally, it was like a complete groove right down them. It just seized up hardcore. Yeah, a lot of people built Voron V2s as their first printer. Like I think the manual is a huge thing. Like the V0 manual is 160 something pages. Like it goes pretty damn in depth. So we try to make stuff these are complicated builds, but we try to make it so that anyone who's never built a printer before can build it by just simply following along. Versus, some of the other RepRap style printers where you have to download these files, but then these parts don't work. So you have to go here and find these, but then this mod isn't compatible with it. We try to have, like with Voron, that's why we try to have the printer itself be fully functional and tested right out of the box. So you build it to spec and you know it's going to work. You don't have to hunt down mods or, oh, you should install this mod instead of this or use this version of this. It's like, no, you build the printer, it works, and then tinker with it. At least that's the thinking. V2.4 versus 1.8. So basically the big difference between, so the gantry is pretty much the same. There are some minor differences, due to how it is, but for the most part, the gantry is the same between a 1.8 and a 2.4 because they are based on each other. The big difference is the bed. On a V2, the bed is fixed. So what that means is whenever you start a print, the majority of your prints are going to be low layer height, right? Most people, they don't print large objects. They're not printing their print volume all the time, especially like if you're printing Voron parts, for example. We're printing huge full plates of parts. They're only this high, right? Voron parts, if you look at them, they're not big. They're big on the X and Y, but they're not big on the Z. So you spend a lot of your time at a low Z level. So when you have the bed at the bottom of the printer, you got all the weight of your bed down here, your gantry is down here, there's nothing up here. So that means you don't get the wobbles. You get a firm base to your printer and it's more stable. It allows you to go faster before everything starts shaking around. And then also another thing, it's not too big of a thing, but as your bed moves on a traditional Core XY printer, it's more of a thing towards i3s. As you print more on the bed weight changes. And as the weight of the bed changes, it behaves differently, right? It's simple physics, right? So you'll see this more on an i3. That's why you get the wobbles on like the CR10, where by the time you're done printing, you have the bed, which weighs X, and then you have a kilogram of plastic also on it that's trying to move around as if it was empty. And you'll see the imperfections in the print. Your print never moves. So on a V2, your print will never move, and it's just your gantry moving up. And the gantry mass never changes because the tool head never changes. You're not adding anything to it as you print. So basically, the moving mass of the printer is consistent throughout. So that's the big advantage of the 2.4 versus the V2. Now the 2.4 is more complicated though, it is more expensive. Print quality wise though, they're pretty much the same now. Like I don't have a 1.8, there's not many out in the wild yet, but I'm pretty sure you can push almost the same speeds with them now. Yeah. You would have to talk to Eddie more about speeds with the 1.8 because he has two of them. But basically, if you, in my opinion, with the Voron ecosystem, so the V0 is a 250 millimeter printer. If you want to go up to maybe 180, you're okay. Anything 200-ish up is definitely V1 territory. From 200 to 300, V1. From 300 to 350, V2. There is overlap, obviously, but that's roughly what I would recommend for sizes. With the 1.8, you can go bigger than the 1.6. The 1.6, we didn't recommend going over the spec size because it used rods, and rods deflect a lot more than extrusion with a rail mounted to it. Yeah, those 300 millimeter speeds were just kind of like, oh, my V2.26 over there, it's got a duet running rip-rap firmware. I've never had a layer shift on it. I just wanted to see at one point I would start having layer shifts on it, and it turns out it's 300 millimeters a second actually printing an object. About half an hour in, it finally layer shifted. So I'm like, okay. They're made like IKEA manuals because we actually have a lot of international people who print Vorons or build Vorons. Not everyone can speak English, so we try to make it, instead of having to have translated versions for a bunch of languages, just make no language. It's funny whenever people ask me questions from the manual because I haven't seen any of the manuals. I've like glimpsed at them, but I've never actually built a Voron following the manual. So whenever anyone's like, "Oh, on the manual it says this, is that correct?" I'm like, let me go look. Somebody did print off a version, one of the manuals, and made a book out of it at some point, I believe. I remember seeing that for some reason. I thought it was pretty cool. See, the trick is with the manuals, it's like, where's Waldo? You have to find Dunar's mouse cursor. It's hidden in every manual. Oh, in case you're wondering, if you ever get a bearing that's press fit into a plastic part, you can't get it out, 16 tooth idler on bench pops it out. Yeah, so I'm just going to do a dumb little thing here. So this is a 2.2 Z module body plate, or whatever it was called. Let's see if I can get this in frame. Drop it. Nope. 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 No. Yeah. No, come on. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be. Good enough. Fuck it. Sorry, language. So this is a printed part. There we go. Just because some people like to see how strong a plastic printed part is. You gotta put your whole weight into it sometimes. And again, that's shearing. Most forces on the printer are designed for sandwiching, so you're not really bending anything, you're compressing. Yeah, properly printed ABS. I printed, the very first time I printed ABS, I made the mistake. It was on my Monoprice Select Mini, which one, that thing sucked for printing ABS because it was a PTFE lined hot end, and the bed couldn't get above 70 while the hot end was running. So I had the printer in a cardboard box. The hot end was like 240, 235. It was bouncing because it could barely run. The bed had dropped down to like 60, and I was printing what everyone does when the first time they try ABS. They go buy the cheapest ABS they can. It stunk up the room, and I took the part out, and I was like, oh, this looks great, and it literally fell apart in my hands because the layer adhesion was crap because I bought cheap ABS. It wasn't dry. The printer wasn't hot enough, and I was like, oh, ABS is garbage. And I realized you can print ABS properly if you get proper ABS. So don't buy cheap ABS. Cheap ABS is a lot worse than cheap PLA, I find. I think I have pictures on the Discord somewhere, but I printed my V1.5 on a Monoprice Select Mini, but I printed in PETG. So I had to print the printer in PETG, and then I had to basically, as soon as it was built, reprint it in ABS. And then take it all apart and rebuild it with ABS parts. The best are these gears. Let me take one apart here. Well, a lot of the 2.4 parts were actually over-engineered. The Hulk Z, or whatever, Beefcake Z, or whatever we ended up calling it, was over-engineered due to reasons, but it doesn't need to be that beefy. Like if you look at the like that big mass of plastic is now this. Like this is all it needs to be, because you look at where it fails and where it doesn't need reinforcement, and you design around it versus just beefing the heck out of everything. Like the amount of plastic we've saved in 2.4 versus 2.1 or 2.2 is quite a bit. It is open source. For a while, it was kind of run like a company, but not a company. The thinking was we wanted to try and keep it a small group of developers developing it, putting it out, just so we didn't have a fracturing. Like for the longest time, we worried that if the printer went fully open source, like say Hevo, Dbot, Cbot, any of the other Thingiverse printers, that you would have a million different variations to it, and somebody wanting to build it would have, as I alluded to earlier, where like, oh, you need to print this printer, but you need these parts from here, these parts from here. Don't use this. This isn't compatible with this, and it just becomes a giant mess. We want it so that built the printer and it just worked. But there is no company, there is no goal to make this into a company and sell a product. Nobody's making money doing this. It's all volunteers. Nobody's getting paid. The guys who do PIF do get some compensation for it from selling printed parts, but it pretty much gets rolled back into Boron stuff. And if you actually break it down, it's actually a pitiful wage doing PIF parts because it takes 3-4 days to print a whole set of printer parts. But yeah, it's literally just a bunch of guys messing around. Russian Cat, Food, Doc, they're like the big guys. I'm just a guy who stumbled into it and somehow I didn't piss people off, and I'm in the dev team. But I can't CAD. I can barely CAD. I just break stuff and make videos. But yeah, there is no commercial goal. There is no grand scheme to sell it off and we're all going to buy yachts and run off to Bermuda. It's just a bunch of guys having fun designing a printer. That's about it. I love my ABS fumes. Okay, let's crush gear. Tell the high production values. By the way, if you ever get a chance to get a vise, get a vise. Having a vise makes everything amazing because it holds stuff. Not working. Good enough. So this is like a year old, printed in eSun ABS, or no, this is Hatchbox. So if I remember correctly, this is under extruded slightly. There we go. That's why I use ABS. It doesn't shatter. If you bend it slightly, it'll just bounce back. ABS has ABS isn't as stiff. Like PLA, for example, is really rigid. It's really stiff. You don't want that. You want a little bit of give so that if you accidentally bump it, it goes back. Like the forces involved on a 3D printer aren't drastic. There is no cutting force on a 3D printer. There is no tool head cutting into metal. So it only needs to be rigid enough to support itself, essentially. So you want it to have a very small amount of shock absorption. If you broke your gantry every time you had a nozzle crash, that's not a great design. Nip-X pliers are nice. Where are they? I got stuff. I use the cheapy 93-cent AliExpress ones. Mechanical vise is good for like if you need to hold something for like soldering or something, a printed one. But if you actually need to hold, you know, metal vise helps. Nip picks are nice. I do have a pair somewhere. I can't remember where I put them. So I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it. I'm not going to take the frame apart because I don't need to. Oh, I still got to take apart the X-beam. Oh, pliers, yeah. Yeah, I have tons of those in my toolbox at work. Oh, yeah. And then while cleaning today, I found a bunch of these guys. These are the Beefcake original design for the printed 80-tooth gears. They used a 40-tooth metal gear as the hub, and they were 3-piece. These things were tanks, but way overkill. You didn't need that. V-locks, yep. This guy apart now. Okay. Yep, I've got all the cheapo wire stripper. Slightly better one. E09 though. That's what you want. I love these things. I think there's a new version out now or whatever, but can't go wrong with the classic. Everyone goes fancy for the drivers. These are Tecton, I think. I don't know. Bond House are good. Where is good. At work though, when I build these multi-million-dollar molds, I use a pair of Stanley Allen keys I bought at Walmart for like 13 bucks. For yeah, they don't break. Those are nice too. Grays are good. I know a bunch of guys who buy grays. Really, I spend money on my measuring tools. I got Mitutoyo, Starrett mics, and whatnot at work. That's where I spend my money on. Tools, not so much, because I end up like taking grinders to stuff to make it fit in certain locations sometimes. There, I gotta remember not to pick these up and have the rails fly off. I did that last time. I took this apart. I just grabbed a rail like that. Carriage went flying off the end. I was like, so yeah, so 2.2. These guys are gone. One of the big things we eliminated with 2.2 is we no longer have the bearing, or we no longer have the what is it? I don't know, the 20-tooth drive gear on a rod sandwiched between bearings. We got rid of all that on 2.4, simplified the BOM drastically. Oh yeah, Harbor Freight. We have up here in Canada, we have Princess Auto, it's called. It's pretty much the same thing. Cheap tools and whatnot from China. I used to have, Actually, yeah, I have a crappy China mic here that I paid like 15 bucks for. I like digital just for the fact that you can swap it between metric and standard easily. But yeah, the cheap stuff's cheap and shit. But for 3D printing, again, you're gluing out melted plastic out of a made in China hot end. You don't really need the Minotaurs for measuring a 3D printed cube. Ah, master crap. You know what though? Old master crap is good. I got an old master crap fucking. What is this? Oh. Basically, if it's master crap and you found it, you know, it was in your house when you bought the house and it's 30 years old, it's probably good. If it's brand new, it's probably bad. How do we get these out? Why do we make this 3 pieces? It's funny looking back at when you take something apart that you haven't looked at in a while. It's like, why did we do this? Your direct drive. Afterburner is released as a beta for 2.2. So there is, you need to swap out the X gantry or the X carriage and the XY joints. But you can do Afterburner on the 2.2, not on the 2.1 though. Oh, direct drive AB. Yeah, no. I believe there was an Annex mod that did it, but now you can literally just take the 2.2 or 2.4 X or AB motor mounts and throw them in a 2.1 or 2.2 gantry. If you wanted to, 2.4 was designed to be very modular. So if you wanted to do just the Z part of 2.4 and leave your 2.2 gantry, you can. If you just want to do a 2.4 gantry and leave your Z from 2.2 because it's working fine, like my setup is, you can. If you want to replace, if you just want to direct drive AB motor modules, you can throw in the 2.4 direct drive AB motor modules and not touch anything else on your gantry and it'll work. However, if you want the X beam, so if you want to replace your XY joints, you do need to replace the front idlers as well, because in the front now, the belt spacing is wider. So it won't line up. So at the time, no, we did not have direct drive, but now you could throw a new part in the old revision and it'll work. Yep, Austin, that's how you used to have to do it. I'm not sure how Annex has their AB motor modules direct drive. I remember looking at a while ago and I thought the spacing or the way the belt was routed on the 20-tooth was a little not optimized, but they worked apparently. But yeah, now you could just throw in the 2.4 if you want to. If you want to keep it all official Boron parts for whatever reason. Because I came up with the name 20 years ago. I can't remember what computer game it was. I think it was StarCraft, the original one. But I wanted to play it online, and I had to create an account. Or was it my email? Yeah, okay, no, it was my email. So I had to pick an email, and this is way back when I was in grade school, back in the 90s. And I couldn't think of a cool, fancy name. But we had Nero burning software, which used to be a CD drive burning software called Nero. And we had that installed on the computer. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool name. And so I used that. And then the Uber part was Nero, unfortunately, isn't clever enough. It was taken by everything. And I had just played some computer game where there was like Uber soldiers in it. I can't remember what game. I just thought Uber sounded cool. So it was Uber Nero. And that's how Uber Nero came to be. It was literally a desktop icon and a word that I thought sounded good. So that was way before Lyft. So yeah, so that is a taken apart 2.2. I don't know if I have anything else. It's almost midnight. I'm probably not going to start building it now. Anyone else got any questions about build or Foron or anything? I'll probably head out in about 10 minutes. Make it a 3-hour stream or something. What do you mean independent? Like, yes. So if you were to, if say you had a 2.2, you literally could just throw the AB motor mounts from 2.4 into your gantry and you'd be good. But if you want to swap like the XY joints, you have to swap the front idlers as well. Or if you want to do the front idlers, you have to swap the XY joints as well. And then I guess technically you can leave the upper Z idlers. So, yeah, you should be able to because the belt spacing is the same, I believe. And I think it will still trigger your end stop. So you should be okay leaving the X carriage. I don't know why my color's flickering. But personally, I like the afterburner tool head versus we didn't really have a name for the old tool head, the one with the doors. Personally, I like the afterburner more. But you can keep the old one if you want. As far as I'm aware. There are no plans at all to do a quick change like you're talking about the I don't think it needs the XY joints, but if you do the XY joints, you have to do the idlers. I'm pretty sure that the belt spacing allows you to use the old or the new tool head. I think. Honestly, if you're going to swap the gantry, do the whole gantry, in my opinion. V2 quick change. Oh yeah, Quick change, yeah, it was a quick change tool head. Although you can still quick change on the. It's actually quicker on this one because you only have to deal with 2 wires now. Well, 2 connectors now. So it's a quicker change tool head. By the way, if you use an Allen key like this, you will get a callus here on your middle finger. Just letting you know. I'll take it apart for you. Screw it. By the way, in terms of steppers, I got a box of extra ones now. Anything else? I'm about to call it a night after I finish stripping this guy apart. Have a good one. I'll try and do more of these randomly. Like I'm not going to make a pattern or like, oh, I'm going to stream on these nights, but I will try and stream more. I'm working on stuff. I find it's easier sometimes just for random questions, to be able to go a little bit more in depth and stuff. Just have a stream. And I'm going to have to listen back and listen. I have no idea how the audio quality is or anything because this is all just thrown together at the last minute on a 10-year-old laptop. So it'd be a lot easier if I could run OBS on this thing, but I've tried before and it does not handle OBS at all. Because then I could do picture-in-picture and all kinds of fancy stuff. Small hardware screws in Canada. I'm kind of spoiled because I have access to Fastenal through work. So I just ask and they drop it off on my toolbox. But honestly, China, the screws that you need a lot of, you can usually find like packages of 50 or 100 of them. And then what I usually do is I'll buy the combo packs off Alley. I've got a few. Like I did that for V0. I think I bought the common ones in bulk, and then because V0 to go with my silver and black theme, all my screws are actually stainless on V0. So I have silver extrusions and I have silver screws and then black printed parts. So yeah, I think that was all China. I got all the screws from China. It just takes a while. That's the shitty part, especially now. Anything from the bomb? The bed. Finding a cheap, well, not cheap. It's never gonna be cheap, but finding a reasonable source for the bed itself is a pain up here. Again, I was lucky with local suppliers, but I know some people. There's a cast aluminum tooling plate. There's no one on. There's only a few places that will sell you it online, and they're not exactly cheap. If you ask, we do have a Canadian section on the Discord. I believe there's some stuff pinned in there, but that's your best bet for when you're looking for stuff up here. Everything else is mostly China. Misumi ships to Canada. They charge 50 or 30 bucks, I believe, and then exchange rate. But getting like a full set of Misumi extrusions and anything else from Misumi is no problem for getting up here. You just have to pay $3 shipping and then exchange rate. If they quoted you 200, that is a get out of my store price, basically, where they don't deal. Most metal stores are used to dealing with companies or bulk orders. They having some random guy walk up and be like, "Hey, can you cut me one piece of metal?" They usually give you a price that basically tells you to screw off. Like up here, I know it's what was it? One of the quotes we got for V0 beds, it was like 50 bucks for one and 60 bucks for four, because they have like most places also have like a minimum order price. I think in the U.S. metal supermarket, metal supply, it should be pinned in the sourcing guide. It's a lot easier in the U.S. to get stuff. Yeah, MasterCard we don't have, unfortunately. Like again, as I said, I lucked out. I have access to Fastenal, which actually I don't right now because of the guy doesn't come in our shop because of Rona. But yeah, is it Midwest Metal Supply? I think it's the one. Yeah, there's Fermio Labs, I think it is. They do pre-made metal beds for Warren specifically. Yeah, my V1 bed. So my V1 bed is a 300 by 300. I'm reusing it in the V2 I will be building. But that bed, it was 300 by 300 by quarter-inch thick, because again, it was a V1 bed at the time. It was quarter-inch spec, and I think I paid $60 locally for that up here. My V2 bed, I actually looked out and got one of the last ones that RCF made. So I paid the premium to get an OG official Voron bed shipped from California. So. Yeah, he made a bunch of them. At one point, MZBot was a company. It was supposed to be like he was supposed to be a company, and he was going to make beds and make printers and sell stuff. And then, how's PrinterBot doing? That's whenever somebody asks, oh, how do you make money in 3D printers? You don't, because China killed the market for U.S. printers, basically, or domestic printers. Unless you sell to schools and follow like the MakerBot philosophy, where they sell to schools and companies and whatnot. If you just try to start up a company designing and selling a 3D printer to the masses, you're not going to make it, because China's going to kill you. So yeah, he only did that for a very short time. Yeah, his videos are very therapeutic and relaxing, versus mine are just printer fast. Okay, so that's midnight, so I'm going to call it there. Thanks for watching, I guess. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Wash your hands. Oh, I gotta hit. Okay, I gotta hit end twice.